Welcome, everyone. I love it when people let their cameras shine on, because then we get to see everyone. Reminds me and reminds everyone else, all the people behind the scenes. But whilst you're all on mute, there is one person that isn't on mute at the moment, and that is the wonderful Shona Reid. Hello, Shona.
Hey, Kylie, how you going?
Yeah, good. So, Shona, welcome to our little collab, that's like tech term, collab between Reconciliation SA and Community Centres SA as part of our community conversation series. We are really excited about this one because it is a topic that many centres I know want to know more about, and not just community centres. I think increasingly we are seeing acknowledgement of country in so many more events and meetings, which I think is only a wonderful thing. Would you not agree?
Oh, fantastic. Everyone's got their thumbs up. I can see them go up. Even if you've got your cameras off, you still got your thumbs up.
Yeah. So many of you would have heard Shona speak at our Community Centres SA conference last year, because we got such, I don't know if you know this, Shona, we got rave feedback about you. It was all positive.
Really?
Yeah.
What were they drinking? It must be in the altitude.
Yeah, high up in Harndorf, a long way up in the hills. But for those of you that didn't hear Shona speak, Shona is the Chief Executive Officer at Reconciliation SA. And Shona, you have really devoted pretty much all of your professional and personal life to the advancement of First Nations people. When I look at your career highlights, it's pretty stellar. So do you want to just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, I sure can. And I might just, before, because it's protocols, start off with my own acknowledgement. Is that okay? Just because it's I'm an Eastern Islander woman from the Northern Territory, and I'm very much I know that I'm a guest on Kaurna country, and I am in Ghana. I'm in the western part of the city, which is the best part of Adelaide. Sorry, everybody else that's not in the western suburbs. Hey, right. Awesome. I have the privilege to work, play and grow my children on Kaurna country, and very privileged to do so, and I have done for most of my life. So I am most privileged to do that, and you know, feel great honoured to be able to be. We've got Uncle Mickey online in a second, who is doing at the moment a welcome to country. That's why he's a little bit late, and we can talk a little bit about the difference of those in a second if you like. But you know, I feel great honour to be able to, you know, talk on Kaurna country, but talk with Kaurna people on Kaurna country. You know, for me, it is a very precious thing, and I don't know if everybody knows around the concept of country, and maybe that's another conversation series we can have. But for me, you know, when I go back on country, there's something that electrifies me to that land. And when I go back to Central Australia, I often have no shoes on because there's electricity that I feel between my country and me, and its connectivity, and it's something very special, and I'm very honoured to do that. And look, right on cue, you know, and like I was just saying, hello, Uncle Mickey. I was just saying,
Me too.
how lucky I am to be able to share this conversation piece with you, but how precious it is for me and my family to live on Kaurna country, and I've paid my respects to be able to do that, because this country's been looked after for so well for so long, and it is a privilege for me to live here because I'm so far away from my own home. So it's awesome. And I forgot the question, Kylie, a little bit about, we don't have to talk about me, we can talk, you can do introduction to Uncle Mickey, and we can talk about me in a second if that's helpful.
Yeah, so for everyone that's joining us, for your benefit this morning, Shona and Uncle Mickey and I were very briefly chatting beforehand about the way that, you know, the conversation might go, but then we all very quickly said, you know what, when we all get together, we just start nattering anyway. And in true typical community development style, I think that's the way this conversation will go. So Shona, thank you. And I too wish to acknowledge the land of Kaurna people, who always have been, are, and always will be the traditional owners of this wonderful land that we work and I live in. And Shona, thank you for your introduction. I'm going to leave it to you to introduce Uncle Mickey.
Oh, no, I would never dare to assume to speak for Uncle Mickey, but Uncle Mickey, I'm really privileged to be able to work with you on so many different things, but not everybody might know who you are, and it's not my place to tell your story. Can you, for everyone online, share a little bit about yourself, only what you want to? Yeah.
Nai taia. So nai nari kamatpi maraja. Nai wangadi mani budni gani atana iridi yata. Hello, my name is Mickey O'Brien. I'm a descendant of the Ghana of the Adelaide Plains. My Aboriginal name is that of the impatient one. I'm the sixth born male of 7 children. My father is Gilla Burker, the old man of the sea, Uncle Lewis O'Brien. My mother is Pauline Nee Sainsbury, a Narunga elder from the York Peninsula. It is wonderful that we can welcome you through the Mukundu, the lightning brain, or the computer, as you would call it, and the Wicca being the internet. But I mean, I was born on this country of Mudlunga, being the nose of the peninsula, and continue to live on that country. And culture for me has always been a part of my life, but particularly in the last 20 odd years has been a major part in providing this responsibility of welcomes, knowledge sharing and knowledge learning for myself, because it's a continuous journey that we make upon the land itself. And what's really important to understand is that though our people have been here for tens of thousands of years, we've always invited people to our places, and that's a part of why we do welcomes. It's an understanding of knowledge and wisdom is always shared and not owned by any one person. And when we understand that cultures enables us to come together, then we can truly value this wonderful place and obviously be a part of this oldest living culture in the world, being the Aboriginal people of Australia. And so, it's being an ambassador is a responsibility, but it's something that we really, in a sense, have only endured or enjoyed really for probably since the 19 or mid 80s because of reconciliation. And so reconciliation is this journey that we're all upon about recognising our differences and impacts and allowing ourselves to build this relationship again with the Aboriginal people who sadly have lost much of their languages and cultures through this colonisation. But we're on the forward move, and our people have always been patient and tolerant people, and that's why it's important when we understand what welcomes and acknowledgements are all about, we can truly be connected to this place.
Thanks, Uncle Mickey. And you're right. There is, it has been, only just realised it's not been that long since the kind of this, I suppose, the growth in honour, paying respects and connecting our place in this space to country, and how important that is for relationships. Can I ask you, sorry, Kylie, I'm just going to take over. Is that all right, Kylie? Sorry. Uncle Mickey, I'm just wondering, what is, like, not everybody, people sometimes get confused between welcome to countries and acknowledgements of countries, and why they are such important protocols to follow for respect. Can you, from your own perspective, from your view, just kind of, I suppose, explain, the nuts and bolts of it so people can kind of get the greater clarity around that?
Yeah, when we truly understand the value of welcomes and now acknowledgements, we truly understand how important it is. Because if you look at even the words welcome is saying, are you well when you come to a place? Because you wouldn't come to a place unless you were well. And so it's not just about the physical unwellness, it's sometimes also about the spiritual and emotional. And so our people have this opportunity to welcome people, because really what you're doing by welcoming people is you're bringing good blessings to them, and you're allowing them to walk across this country, to be a part of this country, to live on this country in a way that they feel connected and knowledgeable about. And so that's why you share not only the language, not only the landscapes and the areas of the landscapes where in the old days to find food and water and shelter, but it's about describing those landscapes, and so people know where they can and can't travel. And so therefore keeping them safe upon this landscape. And so we would do that in ceremony, whether it be a smoking ceremony, a leaf ceremony, or even an ochre ceremony. And we would then obviously do that at the borders of our nation areas so that we could really ensure that people felt a part and understood that connection. And if we look at it, it's not really something that's new. It's something that we've done in many cultures. And when we look at the Western world culture, if we look at it in the analogy of a home, so if I came to your home, I would knock at the door, I would call out to the homeowner would come to the door and hopefully would open the door and say hello to me, and then hopefully invite me in, and then they would describe the landscape of their home. You know, here's the living room, here's the toilet, and here's the kitchen, and please make yourself at home. And then we would have hopefully a conversation or a meal or a drink together. And when we leave, we would then obviously acknowledge that time that we spent together by saying, thank you for this wonderful meal. Thank you for the wonderful conversation. You have a beautiful home. I really enjoyed it. And we generally would finish off with the words of hope to see you again. And all of these things are embedded in our way of welcoming people. We just sometimes don't understand or see how important that is. And so when we look at it in using that analogy, if we were to talk about, you know, what I do in my welcome, so I would tap the clap sticks, which is like this. So that's knocking on the door. That's me calling out. And then I would say, Twila, Manibuni, I'll call out to the spirit people to let them know I'm here so that we can invite people to this place so that they can have this connection to this place. And so that's the calling out to the people. And then when they open the door, I then explain that this landscape is the red kangaroo landscape, that the Karawirapara is the river that you can find shelter and water and food. And then we describe those landscapes. And therefore, we would do that in providing the leaf ceremony by taking a leaf from these leaves here, which is an exchange. And we would say, Nata Nadlu Kamanka Yarakumanindi, which means we give, we receive, becoming one. And therefore, we would also do a smoking ceremony because when you come to places, you bring smells, you bring items, you bring emotions. And so the smoking is about really washing the landscape of that smell across you with the medicinal purposes of the eucalyptus leaves from the gum leaves. And so therefore, your smell is now recognizable by the landscape because you don't have your individual smell, you have the landscape smell. And so therefore, we would sit down and obviously provide you safe passage, have a conversation and connect, and you would hopefully give an acknowledgement. An acknowledgement really is something personal about your time and experience. So we do hear a lot of the times the generic one, which is we'd like to acknowledge the elders past, present and future. Now, that's not to say that's wrong. What it's saying was that was the beginning of the reconciliation movement and acknowledging Aboriginal people. But if we was to put that in the context of me coming to your house, that would be me saying, and it's not about disrespect, but it's about the disconnection, and it's saying, I'd like to acknowledge your toilet, your fridge and your chair. And they're all animate items. They provided me a purpose or a service, but really I made no connection. And so therefore, when we do an acknowledgement, we should make a connection, a personal relationship. So it should be things like, for example, I live on Kaurna country and I know the land of the Kaurna people stretch from Cape Jervis to Crystal Brook to Mount Lofty, and that I know how to say hello, Nina Mani are the words. And I know some of these stories that connect this landscape and the important places and the dreaming stories. And so therefore, when I walk this land, I can do it softly, and I can understand that the journey of learning is something that we all can connect with, and we can recognize this place to be one with us in realizing those connections. And so therefore, when you do it, it should be something personal, something connectable and relational, because you're actually sharing that acknowledgement with the audience. You're telling them your time, your experience, and your connection, and therefore giving them value so that really when they come to that place, they can see the value and the importance. And that's what it's all about, is making people feel connected and welcome and understanding a place when they come to that place. So it's like being invited to a birthday, that's the welcome. And when you have the opportunity, you would RSVP by saying, I thank you for the invitation to be a part of your birthday. And so that's the acknowledgement. It's that personal value that you give in coming to a place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. I think when I was a little girl, and it makes, I love hearing this because it brings back memories, Uncle Mickey, around when I visit my great nana. And I remember when we'd travel up to my country, she would grab some grass and some leaves and she would rub me down like this, and then she'd kind of throw it out to the wind. And as a little 4 or 5 year old, you kind of don't understand what's she scratching me for. But that whole thing around announcing that I'm coming to our ancestors and letting them know that I'm on my way there, and so it is. I'm crying a little bit because I just remember these memories that you're giving me, which are so special. And how lucky are we to be able to still practice that here in Australia. And often I get this conversation, and I don't know if others, feel free to jump in with questions and put them in the chat, or take yourself off mute or put your little hand up. I don't know what the etiquette for, what do you call it, Uncle Mickey? Lightning?
We call it the lightning brain, being the brain, or a computer being a brain with electricity. Yeah, so that's what a computer is, a brain with electricity. So very descriptive people. Very
descriptive, purposeful words. I've lost my train of thought now because I got all into that. What should, when you're listening to an acknowledgement of country and you hear it happening, can I go back one step? No, let's do that bit because that bit's better. When you're sitting down and listening to an acknowledgement of country and you hear the generic one pop up, but then you hear someone else do something different. What sort of feelings does it evoke for you as a custodian, as a man who has amazing presence and often does do a lot of welcomes? What does it evoke for you when you hear that being said by non-Aboriginal people, really connects themselves to their acknowledgement?
Yeah, it really demonstrates that it's wonderful that people are now seeing that this is an important part to any gathering, but it also evokes the aspect of how we still need to further develop and understand the growth of acknowledgements and the value of welcomes. And because when we come to these events, a lot of the times, we will see a number of special guests who will acknowledge the land of the Kaurna people, and they'll do it saying those generic words I mentioned before, and each one will follow. But what they don't realise is when you've been welcomed to a place, you don't need to acknowledge the place. If you're going to acknowledge somebody, you acknowledge the individual who's giving the welcome, and you give your perspective of what your connection is to that place. And so therefore it doesn't need to be repeated, because that's like me again referring to your home. If I come into your home and then your next guest walks in, I'm not going to go, I'd just like to acknowledge you, you're in Joan and Mary's house here today, and welcome to that. No, that's Joan and Mary's job to do that, to welcome you into the home. And so therefore, we don't need to repeat those things, because when somebody's giving you a welcome, it was about welcoming all people, because most times you'll find, and as I do, Aboriginal people won't welcome individuals. We say everybody's important when you come to a place, because if we want to recognise individuals, generally we do that in our person. So normally I would go to individuals before an event or after the event to acknowledge the elders or to acknowledge people that I find that are of value to me, because it should be a personal relationship. It shouldn't be a corporate relationship. And that's what our people did, because they valued everybody brings great knowledge and wisdom. And so yeah, that's one of the big learning, is that we don't need to do acknowledgements when somebody's done a welcome, unless they're acknowledging the individual or they're giving some additional connection to their own perspective of being on this land. Does that make sense?
Yes, because often we do. I think we all can say, once we've been at an event, there's a lineup of 50 dignitaries, and they all do, and we're like, hang on a second, what does that mean, and what does it actually mean? So I think that's a really good, because I do get asked that a fair bit around, do I have to do an acknowledgement after someone else and someone else? And that's, you've said it so much more eloquent than I would ever say. I can say it.
Can I just ask a question too, Uncle Mickey?
Yes.
I think that's terrific information for us all to know, that you don't need to keep doing acknowledgements if there's a welcome. If there hasn't been a welcome to country, would it still be protocol to continue for each person to do an acknowledgement? So just like, for example, when you joined, Shona did an acknowledgement, then I did an acknowledgement. Is that sensible?
No, the acknowledgement, if you're going to do an acknowledgement, like I said at the beginning, it should be something that is connectable and personable, not only to yourself, but to the audience, because really what you're doing is you're informing the audience of the land that they're on, and the place that they meet at, and who are these people of this land. And what's your relationship with those people of the land? Do I know their language? Do I know their stories? Do I know the special places across this landscape? Because you're acting as an acknowledgement person, you're acting on behalf. So it's if I can't welcome you because I'm not there, then you're the person who is actually doing that on behalf of the traditional owners of that landscape. So therefore, your job is to make people feel connected to that place and understand the values of that place through your experience, therefore giving them a great value as well. And like I said, it should be, you should only provide additional stuff when you have something that's of value to share with somebody.
Yeah. It really places then greater responsibility on people who are taking, I suppose, that speaker space, or taking up a conversation around it's deeper than just the words, and understanding not just organisations or corporate world connectivity to this space, but your own individual place in this space, where you've walked, what footprints you've left as an organisation. Like, it's quite an interesting, I suppose, truth-telling exercise in a way around what footprints have you left in the country before, and creating that connection in that way, I think is an interesting exercise for us all to undertake that you're invoking here.
Yeah, well, I'm still taking my journey. It's a lifelong journey. I mean, and Aboriginal people, if you look at a lot of the language itself, though it can be complex, it is also quite simple in its philosophies. We didn't have a lot of wasteful words like the ands and these, and even to some degree, we never said please, because we always assumed that when you're asking for something, that you are doing it in the value of appreciation and value of the person you're requesting that. And so therefore, why do you need to say it when really, as people, as we were sharing, caring people, if we're going to give something, we know we'll receive something, and therefore we'll in some ways value that, but give back as well. And that's what our society was. So we didn't really have to command or request that people would not do things unless they said, please. And that's an interesting concept, really.
Absolutely. We do choose our words super carefully, hey? And that's what, I suppose that also is us, when we talk about acknowledgements, choosing those words carefully is just as important, because we're also providing education to those around us as well. And there's a huge responsibility that comes with that as well. And I've seen it done really well in some places and others. Is there particular things that people should be, like the must knows around an acknowledgement? What are some of the things we must know to ensure that we're respectful?
Yeah, the first thing is to know the country of the land you're on, and so that you acknowledge the right people. Also would be to practice the correct name or pronunciation of the land. Like when you look at Ghana, oddly enough, we're spelt with a K, but it's pronounced with a G. And a lot of this is because of some of the translations from the German missionaries who recorded our language. In actual fact, to tell you the truth, we're not Ghana people. This is a secret. We're not Ghana people. We're actually the Miena people. But we've stuck with the Ghana people because the anthropologists, the explorers and historians have recorded us as Ghana people on so many documentation now that we've decided to leave that. But there is many documentations which will tell you that we're the Miena people, because what it really means is in the language of the, I think it was the Narungga people, Ghana means people. And that's those people, and Miena, that just means people. Anagul being our central desert people, Anagul just means people. Ajamatna, that means rock people. And so really, the language is quite simple. It's just meaning people in our own languages. And so, when you look at even Yulungal people and so forth, but really knowing who the people are, if you can, know where their landscape goes from, and so knowing those areas. And if you can, just learn a little bit of language, even as far as Nina Mani, which is, are you well, or as we use, hello, is very important, because we always said you should know the language of the people whose land you stand upon. Like, just imagine if I went to Italy or to France or whatever, I'm going to try to use some of their language because, one, that's showing value and connection to their place, but also because, English may not be their first speaking language. Therefore, it's an opportunity to practice and exchange in that. The difficulty we have here in Australia is that, unlike most other nations, there might be one or two different languages. We've got over 250. But really, language isn't just about speaking it. It's actually gives us the understanding of how they thought and what their histories and understandings of landscapes are. But also, more importantly, when you learn the language, you can also learn some of the connections. Like, for instance, Uridla, or as some people say, Uradla, that means the ears of the giant. Piccadilly or Piccada means the eyebrows of the giant, or the Ongaparinga River means the women's river, being the Nunki Paringa River. So much of the language is actually embedded in the landscapes of many places like Cowandilla and Nalunga and all of these places. And so therefore, learning the language will help you understand what that place is. What does it really mean? What is the connections that Aboriginal people have made in these places? We say we don't name places, we come to know places. And so that's by understanding the spiritual connection of a place.
Uncle Mickey, I'm still feeling,
Yes.
and Shona, I know you mentioned this, that kind of, that massive, I don't know what else, feeling inside when I'm thinking about the smell of fire and
Yes.
what that represents, and we all know the smell of that kind of musty, smoky smell with the eucalypt scent.
Yes.
It's incredibly moving. And I think what you're reminding us of is that acknowledgement or welcome to country is so much more than just the words. The language is so much more than just words. It's about feelings, and it's about understanding what is behind the words. And I think I'm just wondering if you could talk also a little bit about the feeling in which we might say acknowledgement for country, because it's not just about having the right words, but maybe it's something about also being showing a part of ourselves and what
I'm actually going to give you a bit more of a further understanding to your own connections to places, and I'm going to hopefully use my shield here because I don't have any paper, but it's also a bit hard. But so I'm going to tell you a story, and your job is to work out what the story is. So in the story, 3 fires were lit. Okay, you can see hopefully the 3 fires. When the 3 fires were lit, people came and they gathered in a circle around the 3 fires, just like this, hopefully you can see. Then they chanted by linking arms in the circle. Hopefully you can see this. Then one person but stood in the middle, and then that person made a sacrifice to all of the other people, just like this. And then that one person called to the spirit people. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about a smoking ceremony. But in the words of the Western world, what have I just described? A birthday. So you can probably see that shape is actually the birthday cake, the slices on the cake, the frosting around the outside of the cake. The 3 fires are actually the candles on the cake. The little bit of frosting in the middle is the birthday person. So what did I describe? Well, 3 fires, what does it mean? When Aboriginal language, 3 fires would mean an invitation to a place. In this situation, it's saying the 3 fires are about warding off the evil or the bad. And the 3 fires or the 3 candles on the cake actually represents the past, the present, and the future. And as we say, when we do a smoking ceremony, we remove the old and allow the new so that you can be blessed with the connection of this place. The chanting was the singing of the birthday song. The calling to the spirit is actually blowing out the candle, therefore asking for your wish, and therefore the smoke running over you to give you your wish. The sacrifice is the slicing of the cake, which we don't cut right through, but ultimately we share the cake. We share our meals and all of those things. And so when people come to a gathering for your birthday, they're actually not bringing the wrap presents, they're bringing the spiritual presents to you to give you good blessings for that year. So putting 400 candles on your cake is not representing your age. It actually should only be 3, representing the past, the present, and future. And so therefore, every year you celebrate it because you need to have good blessings every year so that you'll have a good year for that year. And so when you understand these, we can see these things in other cultures, like the religious culture. The priest will wave the incense ball, the smoke, the candles will be lit at the front and the back of the church. In Chinese New Year, they light the crackers to ward off evil and light the incense to bring in the good. And so all of these things are connectable. And so they have meaning. So really a welcome is actually establishing good spirit, because if you come to a place where you're not feeling well, then, you know, it's like the workplace. Everybody else is going to be grumpy. But if you come to a place knowing it's a good place, that you've been felt welcome in there, therefore you will give that. It's contagious. It'll mean that you give that presence upon other people because it's within us. That's the spirit that we have within each other. Make sense? Good.
No, I love, this is why I love hearing, you have your conversation, just linking it to, meaningfulness and purposefulness. And, that's something I've learned growing up, is that everything we do has real meaning, and not just, and I think, like you said before, that we're patient people, and we are, but also very gracious people in terms of, I'll often have invitations to so many, and I think the Acknowledgement of Country has a big part to play in showing that respect back, that reciprocation, and that's when we talk about the reconciliation movement, is the importance of a healthy reciprocal relationship, and that builds trust, that builds respect. And I think that's something that can be gained from, looking at the acknowledgement beyond just words, is that it plays a huge part to play with building really positive relationships. And we're talking with community centres today, and I don't know much around, I know a little bit, Kylie. I think, we've had our conversations and our coffee catch-ups around community centres. What role can this play in building, I suppose, Aboriginal engagement, First Nation engagement in community centres across South Australia? Can this have a role to play in strengthening relationships between local communities and local community centres?
You asking me?
I'm asking anyone, really, because I think it's a great conversation piece.
Yeah, when you look at things, and if we go back to this conversation on welcomes of acknowledgement, one of the interesting things that Aboriginal people didn't do, we actually never said hello to people. We never actually also said goodbye to people. We have no words for those. And really, hello is actually a modern word. It was used when the telephone came about because people didn't know what to say when they called somebody. But when you look at most languages, it's always about asking you, how are you? Or as we would say, our face tells us where we've been, our heart tells us where to go. So what does that mean? Well, we collect knowledge and wisdom. Therefore, when we collect knowledge and wisdom, we have the opportunity to share and value that. And when we connect it to our heart, it enables us to use it for good. And so therefore, when we say no one person holds all the knowledge and wisdom, that's why when you have welcomes, it means actually you're sharing that opportunity to connect with somebody, therefore build a relationship, because we were people of needs, not wants. And therefore, if we knew that people shared things, we didn't need to have what they had, because we know they would share it. And therefore, we gave value to knowing that those people are the people, like, for instance, the Kaurna people. We were known as the place of education because we were central to all of our nations. When we look at the Ngarrindjeri people, they were known as the great basket weavers and also the politicians because they were great activists. And, when we look at the Yolngu people, great dancers and so forth, the Unugal people being great artists, and each nation group had these skills that they would exchange and bring to people. And so when you understand that, how invaluable it means, that when you look at Aboriginal people, we've always had this invitation to people, because that's why we had no words for goodbye, because we knew people came and we knew that was valuable to have that connection with people. And so, I think when we look at community centres, we can provide that opportunity to make people feel welcome and understand the connections of the First Nations peoples and what it means to come to a place, come to this building, and how we can connect and how we can make you feel a part of this place, and not just through culture, but through obviously the community centres that are across landscape, because it is about bringing people together. It's an opportunity to share in the knowledge and wisdom that we each all hold.
I've got a question for both Shona and Uncle Mickey, but I'd remind everyone, if you've got questions or even comments, I'm sure Shona or Uncle Mickey would be happy to try and answer them or comment to them. So either put them in the chat or just put your hand up. What we've been noticing is that it's much harder actually to get someone like yourself, Uncle Mickey, with the spare few hours you've got in your day, because I know you're very, very busy, to bring someone to do a Welcome to Country. Yep. I imagine that's a really positive thing, because it means that Welcome to Country is being seen for what it is.
Yep.
But it's also challenging for many organisations then. Have you got any suggestions around how do people go about finding the right person to do a Welcome to Country for them, given that it's kind of hard to find people who have got the time these days?
Yeah, some of the councils actually have a registered list, like the Adelaide City Council have a registered list of Kaurna people who can provide welcomes, and most councils can provide you that information. The Port Adelaide Enfield Council, they have a wonderful list as well, and they each have a website that provides that connection. There is a few apps out there that provide some small advice and acknowledgements around the lands that you connect to, and there's one called Welcome to Country, which actually has some individuals that will give you a welcome to country through their videos. But when we look at it, I mean, you know, wherever possible, and more so when we talk about, you know, large gatherings or important functions, we should try to get, obviously, an Aboriginal person of that land being the traditional owner. If we can't do that, obviously an acknowledgement is just as valuable. But sometimes when we got things that are like centres where people come and they visit, as I've done with many places, you can have a recorded welcome, which really in some ways provides that person that opportunity to see and to hear the language of a traditional owner, and also to be getting that personal aspect of a welcome from that traditional owner. And sometimes, you know, can then provide a bit more of a growing and a connectable way to build in, you know, coming to a place.
Well, also, just from my experience, sorry, Kyle, just the other thing that it's really, I find really, really important as well, Uncle Mickey, has been obviously to connect in and have, you know, primarily having a really strong, solid relationship with, you know, community is such an important, and don't underestimate how important that is. I think it's the most vital piece, because you also create a relevance in the space as well. I mean, when I run lots of big events and lots of things that happen, and I always one of the things that's so important is not just to grab anyone off the street, because like that's like, it's important to be able to create, everyone has such beautiful talents and skills in different places and spaces. So when I'm doing an education forum, I always love to have someone who's involved in education, who can give their unique perspective, because there's only, you know, having a welcome to country is so beautiful. And then it makes it even more kind of grabbing for people and engaging, and also creates relevance, is someone who has talents in that particular skill set and area. And, you know, I love having a welcome when I'm on a big political event, to have a little bit of Aboriginal politics in there and having someone who knows, so they can speak to my audience as well, not just about definitely about Welcome to Country, but also on the topic at hand, is so important. Just to add, I think from my perspective, it's so hard to have First Nations voices at the table a lot of the time. The system has stopped that for so long. So every opportunity I get in a Welcome to Country scenario to have a First Nations voice, to be not just the welcome speaker, but also to have some commentary. So it's the first thing people hear before they go into deliberations. It's my sneaky way of getting First Nations voices at the table before anyone else has spoken, I suppose. And I am a little bit sneaky sometimes, but do you know what though? It changes the whole conversation when you do that. When you have insightfulness, when you remind people about feelings, when you remind people about what we're really here to do, and you have First Nations perspectives there for that. It really does capture the hearts and minds of people, and that really does influence the decisions at the table. So, like, you know, so when I talk about Welcome to Country, I also talk about not just the most appropriate person to give that Welcome to Country in that area, you know, and be guided by that, but it's also someone who's an expert on the topic at hand. Really adds value to the audience. I don't know, does that make sense? I don't know if I made sense. I'll waffle.
Yeah, look, and it does. I mean, you know, when, as I was saying before, I see Welcome to Country can be done in so many forms. You can do it in language, you can do it in dance, you can do it in actual interaction, like I said, the leaf ceremony or the smoking ceremony or an ochre ceremony, but also you can do it in fixtures, like I said, a video, or you can do it in like Port Adelaide Amphill Council. They have a post that you press a button and somebody gives you a welcome. Or if you go to the State Library, embedded in the concrete is the Welcome to Country written in language on the ground. If you go to the Adelaide University, they have a welcome circle there, and up on the top of the posts and veranda sort of thing is the language, which says, you know, Kaurna people always say hello to and welcome to their country. And so these are simple ways to get, because you should try to make it where it's in a sense tangible and connectable, and not just some simple words where people actually have the opportunity to interact. And when I go back to when you asked what some of the no's, one of the interesting things, and it's still a journey of learning, is people will say to me, can you do the Welcome Country, but you've got 2 minutes? Now, really, a welcome takes as long as a welcome takes. If it's 2 minutes, great, but you should never put time limit, but we do. And there's one gentleman, and I encourage people to look at his similar analogy to mine around welcome and acknowledgements. His name's Jay Kennedy. He's on TED Talks, and one of the things he says is, when we're doing welcomes, are you actually invited to the party, or are you invited to do the welcome? They're two different things, because invited to the party means you're a part of the party, but to be invited to do the welcome means you're not invited to the party. And so, you know, these are all interesting things that we're still on the journey of realising the depths of and values of importance. I mean, I'm having some wonderful conversations with the governor at the moment, who is, you know, putting up the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flag at Government House, which has never been there before, which is quite interesting. But she uses language when she does a welcome at events, and so she's gone to that extent. So people can use it. We encourage people to use language. And one of the things is she wants to create that emphasis on giving Aboriginal people a value in this nation that is their connectable country.
I love, and I'm reminded, Uncle Mickey and Shona, of what we know, but it's important to be reminded of, which is this is a journey. It's a long journey. What was yesterday may not be what today is, and it might not be what tomorrow is. It's those 3 candles. And I was just reflecting, Shona, as you were talking about sometimes using the platform of an acknowledgement country or a welcome to country, sometimes to further your voice. And you said that you might be sneaky. I don't think you're sneaky, Shona. I wouldn't use that word, but you're certainly always, you know, always out there, being real and authentic, and using every opportunity to ensure that your voice and that other people's voices are being heard. So go girl. But I was just thinking too, as you were talking about that, I saw some comments. Tammy, you were just commenting. Tammy's up at Tail and Ben. You were just commenting on often what you do around acknowledgement and welcome to country. I don't know if you can unmute yourself and just share that, because I love what you guys do.
I'm home with COVID at the moment, so please apologise for the sound of my voice. Yeah, one of our staff members, she strongly encourages her 3 children to do welcome to country for every opportunity. The kids love doing it, and she thinks it's really good for their confidence as well. So we promote that in our community, and a lot of our programs with ageing population, and the children are so well received. They're 12, 14 and 15, but very, very well received in our community. So we encourage using them as often as possible.
Are they they're Narrandjeri? Yeah.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm seeing more and more acknowledgement to country and welcome to country that is being presented by younger people. Shona, I know you've talked sometimes about, you know, some wonderful younger people that are starting to kind of move more into this space. Is that really important to support?
Look, I'm always guided by our old people in that space, you know, following their guidance. It is important, I suppose, in there that, you know, I don't give welcome to countries for my mob. I haven't lived up there for a long time, and I certainly haven't myself been given my permission for me to give my welcomes on my country. And I think that's, I suppose, I'm very cognizant of making sure that I follow the wisdom of the old people, and making sure those, you know, that it's important that the young people are nurtured into that. But I also rely on the old people to provide that advice. So I think once we had young Joseph Wanganeen and at an event, and Uncle Frank actually suggested that. He said, I'd love to nurture, you know, my grandson and teach him, and Uncle Frank brought him up on stage, and as part of a learning experience for Uncle Frank, stand next to him as well. But at that time, you know, for me, it's not my place to try and determine who gives. I think that's a humbling bit of this as well. When it comes to welcome to country, it's not my place to determine who does that. It is the old people that do that. So I would encourage you to do your research in that space around seeking that advice around. I don't know, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that's the way I go about it. And hopefully, you know, I get it right. I don't always get it right, I have to say. I always learn. But it's one of those things where you learn, and when your intentions are well placed, people are really wanting to help you find the right pathway forward and the most appropriate person. And we work all across South Australia, so there's lots of different places that I need to connect with. But most of all, that's all about your relationships, and that's about investing in relationships with community, investing with relationships with First Nations peoples, and how do you do that as an organisation? And that's, I suppose, a takeaway from today is, you know, what is your relationship like? Who do you connect with? Who do you have cups of coffee with? You know, there are people in your community, all across your community, that absolutely have the authority to give you some guidance in this space. And I encourage you to step outside and seek those relationships and invest in them. They are very worthwhile relationships to invest in. Ask questions about your community centre and the land that it's placed on. Ask questions about who do you what's your relationship with community previously, and what would you like your relationship in future to be like? Because from those discussions you find out you know, where relationships can grow and prosper, and the conversation about who needs to do your welcome, or who can you invest in into the future and support and provide voice to comes quite easily after that, I think. I don't know, I'll put that out for discussion if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think actually, Shona, we've got you and some others talking in different ways in the next few months down north and south, I think, around engagement and exploring more some of the questions you've just posed. But I can see that we're almost at 2 o'clock. I'm just wanting to remind everyone, if you haven't seen on the chat screen, that there is the perfunctory survey. We would ask that you just do a quick fill in, just copy and paste it into your browser, or just press the link straight away before you leave it. It will literally take you like 1 minute. That's part of our ongoing reflection of our own practice. I'm interested, just before we leave, if everyone could just type in one thing that's really hit in here, an important message to take home today. I think we can use our intellect often to speak about our learnings, but I'm really interested to know how it's impacted, deeply on, I guess, your soul and your feelings around welcome to country and acknowledgement to country. I've spoken about the smell of smoke, and thank you so much, Uncle Mickey, for telling us more about that. Every time now, I'm going to really reflect on that.
While people think about that, I'll give you some examples of some stuff that people have written. So this person, which we converted in language for them so they could do it in language, they said, Gana miena yaita yata matanya banako yatanga nai wani kuma yuta pindi, which means the Ghana people are the traditional owners of this country, being Adelaide, and I was born and grew up on their country. That's what somebody wrote. Another one that somebody wrote was Nudlu Tampanding Ghana Yacha Moya Morindi Imbarella Tampandi Nunya Unya Muri Yacha Tikindi Pichindi Tangi Wilta Ganya Yanya, which says we recognise the Ghana culture continuing in this place and recognise reconciliation and cultural understanding makes stronger communities. And so there's just a couple of examples of people, thinking and making it more personable, but also wanting it not just to be saying it in English, but wanting to be able to say it in language itself. And when you do that, I think it adds more resonance to the meaning and the depth of value and respect and connections.
Thank you so very much, Shona and Uncle Mickey, for joining us today. Big lightning claps and in real claps to you both from our hearts. We really appreciate your time and your wisdom, particularly Uncle Mickey. You can see, I don't know if you can see coming through on the screen, but it's made me become more inspired to find out about the history of the land and help create that personal connection. That's right to the heart of what you've been talking about, Shona. Thank you for greater understanding of country and how to show respect and offering personal connections. And I think that the personal connection for me, and I'm sure for many people, often when we have the opportunity to give an acknowledgement of country, we fluctuate between wanting it to be real and coming from our own hearts, but also not wanting to say anything that's inappropriate and feeling like you need to speak to a script because that's correct. And I think what you've opened up the opportunity for us all to reflect on, Uncle Mickey, is there's a bit of both there, and really connecting to place. That's really what it's all about. So thank you so very much.
Well, thank you, Shona, for not only organising me, but also the wonderful work that she does in bringing reconciliation and that greater depth of understanding. She is certainly a great person of our generation in taking it to the next level and providing that more conversational way of bringing people together. So thank you, Shona, for your wonderful work that you do at Reconciliation SA.
Oh, shucks. Thank you, Uncle Mickey. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
It's an honour to be with you all today, so I appreciate it. And I look forward to the North-South conversation and what comes of that. So join us. Aha.
And just before you go, Uncle Mickey's actually put in the chat, as you could finish off just by saying those words again for us, Uncle Mickey.
Yeah, so I put those two that I just mentioned, where the Ganamiana, Yacha Yata, Matanya, Banako, Yatanga, Nai, Wani Kuma, Yuthan, Apindi, which means Ghana people are the traditional owners. And as it says in English, and then I think I put the other one in there. Hopefully that came in.
There it is.
Or did I put it twice?
No, go up to the top a little bit, up to 2 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Nudlu.
Yeah, so Nudlu, Tampandi, Ghana, Yacha, Moya Morindi, Imbarella, Tampandi, Nunya Nunya, Muri, Yacha, Tikindi, Pichindi, Tangiwilta, Ganyanya, which means we recognise the Ghana culture continuing this place. So So there's a couple there, and hopefully, yeah, people will see the opportunity to develop and build their own connections to not only language but to welcomes and acknowledgements, and to share and explore the wonders that we can each make in doing that.
On behalf of all the community centres around the state, thanks so much, Uncle Mickey and Shona.